Hi everybody, I am going to be making some beef tacos. These are a go-to weeknight meal in my house because I can make them very quickly and have them ready to go. My kids adore them and they are perfect for Cinco de Mayo or any day that you are looking to add some tacos to your life. So I'm going to start by browning my ground beef, and I have 1.5 pounds of 80/20. You can use whatever ground beef you prefer. I like 80/20 because I think it has a little more flavor. It's also it's less expensive. It has more fat to it. So a lot of that fat is actually going to cook out, and I'm going to saute my onion in some of it. So I think it has good flavor. And I have 1.5 pounds because my kids eat so much, but I used to do it with 1 pound. So this is an easy recipe to pivot. To start my taco recipe, I have my pan heating, and I want to hear that sizzle when I add the beef to the pan. If it's not hot enough that you hear it sizzle, just wait until it heats up a little more. I also don't have anything in my pan, any fat or oil, because this is 80/20, so it has a lot of fat that's going to render out. So 80/20 means 80% meat, 20% fat. You'll see it on the label. So hear the sizzle, 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 sizzle. I'm just going to break it up with my spoon. And I'm just going to continue to kind of stir it as it browns. I know it looks like it's going to stick right now, but I'm just going to leave it alone for a little bit, and that's all going to be scraped up into brown bits of deliciousness in my tacos. Another very important element that you want to do right now is you want to season. You want to season as you go, so you have layers of flavor, not just salt on top. You want layers of flavor. So I'm going to do a hearty pinch of salt over my ground beef, and when I say hearty pinch, it should look something like that. Like, I know that looks like a lot, but it's really not. You need that, otherwise you're going to taste it at the end and you're going to be like, it's kind of flavorless. I don't know what she's talking about. So you need that salt. So I'm just going to let this sit for a little bit and brown while I dice my onion. So this is something that I always encourage people to do in the kitchen when you're trying to make dinner and you're trying to do it somewhat quickly, is that you need to multitask. It's like parenting, really. So while my beef is browning, I'm going to dice my onion. I wouldn't just stand there and wait and watch it brown. I mean, you could, preferably with a glass of wine or margarita, but I'm going to dice my onion while that browns. When it comes to the size of your onion, you know, onions come in all sizes. You can get a red onion, a white onion, a yellow onion. I use yellow onions for this, but you can definitely use whatever you have. I'm a big fan of using whatever you have. But 1 onion is fine. Sometimes people have super small ones, super big ones. It just depends how much you like onions, and you can tailor the recipe accordingly. Sometimes the ratio really matters in something. Like when I'm talking about drinks, I'm really specific with measurement because you're working with ratio. In a dish like this, if your onion is not that big or your onion is huge, it really isn't going to make a huge difference in the overall taste of your dish. So don't stress about the measurement of the onion in this case. So again, a quick dice. Oh, they're gonna make me cry. Thought I was gonna get through it, now I'm tearing up. And I just run my knife through it to make sure they're all uniform in size. Okay. Now I'm going to check this and give it a stir. Okay, browning is happening. And caramelization equals flavor. So, see where it's getting a little darker? It's kind of sticking to the bottom of my pan. So good flavor that we're establishing. I just break it up with my wooden spoon. And then I'm going to get a paper towel lined bowl that I'm going to transfer this to once it's browned, because a lot of fat is going to come out of this. Again, it's 20% fat, so that is to be expected. Same principle with garlic cloves. Like, some garlic cloves are huge, some are not. I'm using around 3 garlic cloves. I am using 3 garlic cloves, but use what you have. Pour off the excess fat. I'm not going to save this. I'm actually just going to throw it away, but it's not good to put it down your drain. So I'm going to pour off the extra fat, and then I'm going to saute my onion right in this pan with the brown bits. The brown bits are the flavorful bits, so I like that it's all done in one pan. So I'm gonna transfer my onion. And again, you want to hear that sizzle. You heard that? You want to hear that when you add your onions. Now, you don't want your heat to be quite as high as it would be with the beef. So I'm going to turn it to like a medium low so that you can sweat those onions. That's the technical term. Yes, sweating. Sweat your onions, meaning you want them to be translucent and softened, but you don't want them to brown. And they really add a lot of nice flavor to this dish, and I like to cut them in a dice like you see here so that they're about the same size as the crumbles of beef. No huge onion chunks. Okay. And if your pan seems dry for whatever reason, add a splash of oil. Olive oil, canola oil, something like that. Don't overthink it. Just if it seems dry, add a little oil. Maybe you drain too much off. Maybe you are using really lean beef, so you don't have a lot of oil to begin with. So you can always add a little bit if you need to. Okay, I'm gonna let those sweat, and I'm gonna come over here to my spices, because this is what's gonna turn it into taco meat rather than just ground hamburger. So I have chili powder, coriander, it's not from 2014, it's fresher, and cumin. These are kind of the usual suspects that you would see in a taco packet mix that you buy at the grocery store. But this is just a simpler way of doing it so that you don't have to do it with a taco mix. So I'm gonna put these into a little small bowl. And then once I have everything combined in my pan, I'm going to toss it in and toast them up a little bit. Okay, so for my, let's see here. I need 2 tablespoons of chili powder. So there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, which is why I'm doing 6 of these, because I can't fit a tablespoon in the top of my jar. Workaround, okay. And then I'm gonna do my cumin next. Do 2 teaspoons of cumin and a teaspoon of coriander. It's got a nice fresh scent and flavor. Coriander is the seed of cilantro. And then oregano. And I'm gonna do a kind of a scant teaspoon. I like to pinch it a little bit and break it up as I'm putting it in here to release some of those oils from it. And then if you like it spicy, which my kids have started to like spicy things, so I've started putting cayenne in it. But again, if you don't like spice or your kids don't, just leave it out. I'm just gonna do a little sprinkle of cayenne for them. It's less than a 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, let's check our onion here. So you can tell it's not quite translucent. Like, it still looks pretty white. They're softening, but they're not quite there yet. And I do think it looks a little dry. So I'm gonna add a little more oil. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my garlic now to my onion mixture. I just use a microplane to do that. To do this, you could certainly mince it if you'd prefer, or if you don't have a microplane, but I actually find this a little bit easier. You can also do this on your board if you don't feel like holding your hand over a hot pan. That might have been a smarter way to do it, but this is what I usually do. I'm usually doing about 10 things at once, and so I just grate it right into the pan and go about my business. So garlic will cook and burn a lot faster than the onion. It's so much smaller the way we have it finely grated. So that's why I do it at the very end. And then I'm just gonna give it a quick stir and add my meat. But it doesn't need very long to cook at all. And I happen to love garlic, so I put it in everything. Don't grate your finger. Okay, so give that a stir, and then I'm gonna add my beef back in. Again, brown bits are where the flavor is, so when you get all those brown bits up from the bottom of my pan. So you'll see how much fat is left on my paper towel. So I was talking about how much fat is gonna render when you cook the beef. Okay, so give this a stir. Now it's time for spices. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the spices, and I'm gonna stir and coat the meat and the onion mixture with the spices. And this is twofold. It's giving the spices a chance to meld with that meat, and it's toasting them a bit in my warm pan. So add and stir. Add and stir. right. And I'm also going to add another pinch of salt at this point because I think it's gonna need it. And I was talking about layering the flavor in pinch. This is what a pinch looks like. Pinch. We had this joke in culinary school on like day one. The instructor was like, I know you guys are used to doing Barbie pinches of salt, which I just thought was so funny. He meant like when you start, you're like, oh, just a little bit of salt, but that's really not how you should season something if you want to get any flavor from it. So, no Barbie pinches. Okay, so I'm just gonna give these a chance, all these flavors to meld and toast for a second, and then I'm gonna add some liquid. So for liquid, I'm gonna add chicken stock or chicken broth and tomato sauce. And I use whatever tomato sauce I have on hand. Sometimes that's leftover pizza sauce or pasta sauce, or I have, you know, half a can of diced tomatoes from something else. You just want something tomato-y. So sauce if you're going to the store and you're gonna go purchase something to make this, but if you have even fresh tomatoes you could use, or if you only have tomato paste, don't add half a cup, but add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and then a little extra liquid, and you can still make this dish. Again, using what you have on hand. So half a cup of tomato sauce. And then I'm gonna add my chicken broth and I'm gonna put it in the same liquid measure to get the rest of that tomato sauce out. Half a cup of that. And then I'm actually going to give it a stir and I'm gonna see if I think it needs more liquid. Because I want this to simmer, maybe a little bit juicy, but it's gonna cook down, it's gonna continue to reduce, so I'm gonna add a little more chicken broth. Maybe half of one of these, so that when it simmers, it has a little juice to absorb. Okay, so half one of these, so that's 3/4 of a cup. You can also just use water. Okay. So now I'm just gonna let that simmer for a few minutes while I prepare the taco toppings. Okay. So I'm gonna have that on low and I'm just gonna keep an eye on it. Okay, taco toppings. So I'm all about a pivot. So we're gonna use whatever you have on hand. I like to use cucumbers, lettuce, grated cheese, fresh tomato if I have it. If not, I don't stress about it, but those are always in play. Cucumbers, cheese, lettuce, my kids expect that. Taco shells, you could use crunchy or soft. I'm gonna use crunchy. And then always tacos. Now I'm getting the toppings ready for the tacos. And this is really choose your own adventure. So like I said, my kids always want cheese. Definitely buy shredded cheese if it makes your life easier. I just happen to not have any and I have a block of cheddar, which is why I'm doing this. But I am all for doing what makes your life easier at dinner time. So this is just sharp cheddar that I know they like and I know they'll eat. So I have my shredded cheese. People are gonna make their own tacos. And then next I am going to cube a cucumber. And this I like to do as a way in the summer, we have a lot of tacos and I grow cucumbers and you end up with a ton of cucumbers. So this is a way to kind of eat your vegetables in your entree. Use up cucumbers, add some crunch. It's really delicious in your taco to have that little extra crunchy bite. So I'm just gonna cube these. I don't like them too big because you want them to be able to fit in the shell and you don't want your bite to just be cucumber. You want it to be a little bit of everything. So I'm just cutting these into smaller strips. I also have my oven going with some crispy shells that I am toasting up, but you could do hard shells, you could do soft shells. Okay, what else do I need? Lettuce. So I almost always have lettuce washed in my refrigerator and I keep it in the spinner because it keeps it really crisp and then it is ready to go. If you're making a salad, if you're chopping it for tacos, but it keeps it perfectly crisp if you keep it in the spinner with the lid on. I'm a huge proponent of that, so. Think of like shredded lettuce on a taco. You can use whatever kind of lettuce you want. I like the crunchier stuff versus like a spring mix, but again, use what you have. Lettuce. Okay, so the final elements that I need for my taco meat to really round out the flavors, I'm gonna add a little bit of brown sugar, which truly is key. a little bit of brown sugar. If you don't have brown sugar, this is probably, I don't know, 1.5 teaspoons, 2 teaspoons. If you don't have brown sugar, use regular sugar. If you don't have either of those things, I don't know, go to the store. Use maple syrup, use agave, use something sweet, just a little. Think like a teaspoon, then we're gonna taste it. And a splash of apple cider vinegar. Vinegar is key. So splash, people like to know measurement. Let's do a tablespoon. Looks like a tablespoon. There we go. Now I'm gonna stir it and I'm gonna taste it. And if your mixture has gotten too dry at any point, like it just doesn't seem saucy. So see how there's like a little bit of sauce to this? Like when I drag my spoon through, you see a little bit of the sauce there? If you don't have any sauce and it seems dry, add a splash of water. Don't be scared to add a little bit of water because it's been cooking and that liquid is going to reduce. Or another splash of chicken broth. Okay. And I'm gonna taste it. Delicious. So normally I would bring this to the table, all of this, and people could assemble their own tacos. I just want to give you a rough idea of how I would assemble my tacos. I also sometimes serve this with refried beans if you want a way to like, add some beans to the mix. Okay, so I put a little bit of the meat in my taco shells that I've toasted. So you can toast taco shells, it just makes them a little more flavorful. There you go. Add my meat. And then I like my cheese because it melts a little bit into the warm beef. Like that, a little more there. Okay. Cucumber. It's a great way to use cucumbers, I must say. Give my husband full credit for this one. Some lettuce. So I have some radishes in my refrigerator. I'm gonna put them on top. I like the way they taste. I think they're so pretty. And then a little bit of taco sauce. I'm telling you, if you have not tried taco sauce, try it. Makes a big difference. It's delicious. So Cinco de Mayo or any weeknight, these crunchy, delicious beef tacos come together so fast and are a crowd pleaser. Thanks for watching.